Welcome back to another episode of the Isn't That Rich podcast. In September of 2023, Farmers State Bank hosted a half-day seminar called the Legacy Sessions, featuring 4 guest speakers who are all experts in their industry, helping their clients build a lasting legacy. We recognize how beneficial the information they shared was and wanted to give our listeners the opportunity to hear what they had to say. Today, we are happy to share with you part 3 of the Legacy Sessions. In a world filled with economic complexities, fluctuating markets, and evolving financial goals, the role of a trusted financial advisor has become increasingly vital.
Our guest of honor is not merely an advisor, but a beacon of financial wisdom, guiding individuals, families, and businesses toward their financial aspirations. With a wealth of knowledge and experience in the ever-changing landscape of finance, he has consistently demonstrated an unwavering commitment to helping others secure their financial futures. It is my honor to introduce you to today's speaker, Mr. John Forbes.
My name is John Forbes. Little background, I'm from Carterville, Illinois, married a Carterville girl. Went to school at SIU, started out as a finance major, and the crash of '87 changed my plans. There were no banks coming to recruit at SIU in '87, '88, '89. So talked to my advisor, and she said, "Why don't you try accounting?" Okay, I'll try accounting, and I tried accounting. Kind of liked it. Went on to become a CPA, and my wife and I moved up to St. Louis, and I worked for KPMG Pete Marwick for a few years, and then worked as a financial officer for a small company. And my wife and I spent all this time thinking we wanted to get away from Southern Illinois, and then when we had our first child, we realized, maybe Southern Illinois is a pretty good place to raise a family. And we moved back, came back home, and I was financial advisor for a national firm for about 10 years. Good firm, but I realized that it was kind of like, and I hope there's not a Dairy Queen franchise owner in here, but it's kind of like Dairy Queen, the place I was at. If you want vanilla ice cream, it's the best vanilla ice cream you're ever going to get. But for my clients and I wanted to have a little bit more flexibility, so I went out on my own, and I called it, I opened a Baskin Robbins. I can now offer 31 flavors instead of 1. And I've been a financial advisor now for about 27, 28 years. And when Jill and Ashley approached me about this, first of all, this event itself speaks to what is important to Farmers State Bank. And I think they are doing a fantastic job of making an impact in their community. I thank them for inviting me. The conversation today, or what I'm going to share with you, is we're going to talk about true net worth. And I like to call it the true riches. Yes, we're going to talk about money, but we're going to talk about many things that make you wealthy. So when I say wealth, what words come to mind? Give me, when you hear the word wealth, what do you think of? Give me a word. You're gonna have to. I realize now how hard it is when you're on a stage to hear people. When you're booing, it's a blessing. But when when I say wealth, give me a word. Real estate. What else? Money. Family. Travel. Nice. Did you all read my notes already? Is this what happened? I thought I had an edge on you, but maybe I don't. But when we're talking about wealth, I've come up with an acronym about what is wealth. So we'll start with W. W stands for wisdom. Wisdom is defined as having a quality of experience, knowledge, and good judgment. And to me, experience is just a very kind way of saying you've put a few rings on your tree. You've aged a little bit. But if you're doing it right, you pick up a nugget or two of wisdom and knowledge along the way. And if you do it like I do, sometimes you make bad decisions, and you learn from your bad decisions as much as you learn from your good ones. So what do we do with this collection of wisdom? On a personal level, you cultivate relationships with the people that mean the most to you. I've got this, it sounds like something Yogi Berra would say. You can't be everything to everyone, but you can be everything to everyone that means everything to you. And I can't say enough how when we talk about wealth, we think about money too much, and we don't think about these other things. When we talk about professional wisdom, how many of you have ever been in a mentoring program where you actively mentor someone? Yeah, good. I really encourage you to consider, if you haven't done it before, to get involved. Young people are starving for guidance. They're starving for something aspirational. It's heartbreaking how many people grow up, how many young people grow up and don't have someone sharing the bits of wisdom that maybe you received as a child or even as an adult. But the problem is young people feel very uncomfortable approaching others and seeking out mentorship. So I would encourage you, it might be a family member, a friend of a family member, it might be somebody at church, I don't know who it might be, but be active and intentional in looking for opportunities to be an influence. You know, with financial wisdom. And what we're going to do throughout this presentation is I'm going to share with you the 5 most common mistakes that investors make. And we'll kind of address those throughout the day. But a very fascinating study Dalbar put out last year. And it was a 30-year study on investment performance and investor results. And over the last 30 years, the S&P, when I say the S&P 500 are the 500 of the largest high-quality companies in the United States. Over the last 30 years, the S&P has averaged just a whisker under 10% a year. The average equity investor over this 30-year period had a return of about 6.8%. Bonds is even worse. The bond market over that period of time, the aggregate index, has averaged just a touch under 5%. And the average bond fund investor lost money, negative return over the last 30 years. You know, why does that happen? What causes that? Well, we're gonna address that today. Common mistake number 1 is understanding what normal is. So when we talk about the market, and we talk about whether it's 30 years, 90 years, we can look on any long stretch of time, the stock market has averaged just a touch under 10% a year. When you look at it, it's got ups and downs, but I said, okay, went and did a review. If it's averaged 10% a year, how many years have we had a normal market return? And I defined a normal market return as somewhere between 8 and 12%. If it's average 10, you know, how often do we get somewhere between 8 and 12, including dividends? And you go back and over the last 91 years, the number of calendar years where we've had a normal return is 5. 5 out of 91 years. And I said, okay, well, I'm not defining it correctly. Let's go back and make the path a little wider. And if it's average 10, how many years have we had somewhere between 6 and 14%? That's a pretty wide swath. 91 years, it's happened 11 times. So what that tells me is 7 out of every 8 years, the market is either up more than 14%, up 0 to 6, or it loses money. That's normal. Normal isn't 8, 10, 12, 8, 10, 12. That's not how we get there. If that's the way it was, everyone would throw everything into the stock market, right? But it's not. Normal is, some people call it risky. I have a better word for it. It's inconsistent. It's inconsistent returns, and that inconsistency is what drives investors to make poor decisions. So that's common mistake number 1 is just not understanding what is truly normal. Next on our wealth acronym, E is experiences. Now, someone mentioned travel when I was asking for what do you think of when you think of wealth. that's why I thought someone's been looking at my notes already. But experiences, what am I talking about? It could be travel. It could be taking art classes, learning to play an instrument. It could be any of these things. And what I'm finding with my clients as they enter retirement and even sometimes into retirement, it's a very different mindset when you spend your life saving and accumulating to get to that point in your life where now it's time to spend some of it. And a lot of really good people who've done a great job accumulating are scared to death to spend money. And it robs the joy from the travel. It robs the joy from making that addition on the house. It robs the joy from spending money and being able to flip that switch to understand how to spend money is so important. And how do you get there? Well, any financial plan, any financial foundation that you have, and if you're working with an advisor, needs to address not only accumulating wealth, but how are we going to spend it? How can we spend it wisely? What account should we draw off of, and how much is too much? How much is too little? So these are important conversations that you should have when you're talking about your finances. Is not just how do we save and accumulate, but how do we spend? Which is going to lead us to mistake number 2. Emotions getting the best of you. This is one of my favorite topics to complain about. Maybe complaining is not the right word. How many of you have a financial media channel or website that you look at frequently? How many of you have a news channel or a news website that you look at frequently? Got a bunch of you, okay. Financial media, and for that matter, media of any kind. We would like to think that the financial media's job and their responsibility is to educate us and make us better investors. Not true. Financial media's job is to sell advertising. News media's job isn't to make us smarter or inform us. Their job is to sell advertising. It's how many clicks can we get, how many eyeballs can we get, and how many of you are as irritated as I am. I sound like an angry old man. I just realized I'm coming off wrong. How many of you get irritated every time you walk by the TV, there's a red bar at the bottom and pong and some big noise, and it grabs your attention, and it's something about a water main break in Tuskegee, Alabama, but they have to make it sound like it's incredibly important. I'll give you an example with financial media. Just yesterday, the CPI report came out. And I turned on CNBC, and they had a countdown for when the CPI report was going to come out, minutes and seconds. And I looked, and the stock market futures were down about 0.08% before the report came out. But they hyped it up all through the program. Stay tuned, we got this, stay tuned. The report comes out, it was pretty much just exactly what was expected, and the market moved nothing. It did nothing to the market. It fluctuated. People, I'll save that comment for later, because I'm going to actually, one thing you're going to learn today, I'm going to tell you what the market's going to do for the next 3 days. How would you like to, you want to know what's going to do? I've got some inside information I can share with you. But when we talk about emotions getting the best of us, the media plays off of our emotions and can lead us to make very incorrect decisions. They can lead us to make very life-changing decisions. If you were to walk up to an elevator and the button said surge and plunge, you'd take the stairs, right? You wouldn't even get on the elevator. It's the same way a lot of people are afraid of the market because a lot of the terminology that's used and a lot of the emotions that are drawn are fear and greed. And it is sometimes just becoming a little bit more educated about what they are and what's important as far as your portfolio and your wealth is concerned. becomes critical. One other thing we have to remember, touch on this real quick. The stock market doesn't really care about what happened yesterday. The stock market is a forward-looking entity. And when I talk about emotions getting the best of us, if I've had this conversation once, I've had it 1,000 times. Someone will call the markets in disarray, and someone will call and say, John, how about we get out? We got to stop the bleeding. This market loss is driving me crazy. Let's get out, and when things look better, I'll get back in. Sounds perfectly irrational, right? The problem is when there isn't a Ukrainian war, and there isn't inflation running rampant, and there isn't political turmoil, and there isn't all this stuff is gone, where's the market? It's up 20, 30%. You missed out on the opportunity because you waited until things looked better to get back in. It's a very human response, and sounds like a very rational response until you walk it through. Next, affluence. Money, 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 money. When people think about wealth, this is what most people think of, and it is. It's very important. I hope as we get through this conversation, this presentation, we'll have some concrete things that we can work with. But the definition of affluence is an abundance of wealth or property. It comes from a Latin word that I'm not even going to try to pronounce, but it means to flow abundantly. So as one becomes affluent, it becomes more and more important to understand where you want your money to flow. The gentleman earlier, Adam and Evan, did a great job of sharing some practical ideas on how to protect your legacy. I'm going to hopefully share a few ideas that will help you understand how to create affluence and create some control. If you're retired, this first one doesn't necessarily apply, but I bet there are people in your life that would benefit from this knowledge. Pay yourself first. And I see this with young people frequently, where they struggle to try to set aside money. And then when they finally do set aside money, I'll ask them, have you got a retirement plan at work? Yes, they do. Okay. Are you participating? Yes, I am. How much are you participating? Well, they only match 3%, or they only match 4%, but I'm putting in the 3 or 4%. And that's good. I kind of want to congratulate them. That's great. But then I ask them, okay, how much do you need to be setting aside to retire the way you want to retire? And their eyes glass over. They don't know. All they know is they're in a 401k plan and they're putting in X percent. What we know is that with entities that have pensions, which are becoming almost an endangered species, but for pension funding, it takes anywhere from 12 to 15% of your pre-tax income to fully fund a pension for retirement. So if we're talking about setting aside in your retirement plan money, I always encourage my clients and my clients' kids and those younger to try to take advantage of the match, of course, but the goal should be to try to press toward getting 12% of your pre-tax income into a retirement account. I've never had anybody come to me and say, John, I just saved too darn much. We just have too much money we've accumulated. It's never been a problem. Another thing I like to share with parents of kids, because a lot of parents will come and say, okay, I've got my daughter, my son is 3 years old and I want to start saving for college. Great, I love saving for college. But when they say they're going to save for college and they've got $6,000 on a credit card bill, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And what I try to remind folks is you can borrow for college, you can't borrow for retirement. You can't do it. So well-meaning parents, we have to get their financial house in order first. Do you have your debt, your unsecured debt, is it paid off? Do you have a cushion, a savings set aside for emergencies so that when life happens, and it always does, you don't go to the credit card, you've got some money to dodge that bullet. But yeah, it's critical. Saving for college is great. only if you've checked off other key boxes. Unsecured debt's paid off, I've got a cushion behind me, and my retirement funding plan is in place. Now, for grandparents, they often, isn't it funny, now that I'm a grandparent now myself, I get it. You know, for the longest time I didn't. I wish there was a way to have your grandkids first. Yo, yes, I've got three grandbabies now, and sometimes it's amazing how brilliant our 5-year-old is when the 30-year-old that had her has you shaking your head from time to time. But be that as it may, one encouragement I share with parents and grandparents: financial literacy is so weak in the United States, but there are some practical, simple things we can do to make financial awareness enticing and exciting for young people. And one is you can offer your own matching program for your kids or grandkids. You know, if they mow yards or if they're babysitting or whatever they're doing, and they set up a savings account at Farmers State Bank, by the way. If they set up a savings account, if they commit to putting, and they put $10 in or $20 in or whatever, maybe once a month or once a quarter you see how you done, and however much they put in, you'll match it. Well, that's when kids start getting excited and grandkids start getting excited about money, when they see the growth in their own account. So it's just a nice little way to help create a good awareness of financial literacy. When we talk about affluence and how do we get it, you have to have a plan to protect your purchasing power. What do I mean by that? Well, we got to take inflation and taxes into account. Inflation, I heard it said once, I love this. Inflation does to your wallet or your pocketbook what high blood pressure does to your heart. It's the silent killer. You don't notice it. Well, we're certainly noticing it now. It's been a while since we've had inflation, but we're noticing it now. But one thing that I hear investors talk about is the good old days. The good old days when the CDs at the bank were paying, okay, some of you were around. You remember the 1970s, late 1970s, what were CD rates paying back then? 17, 18%. What was funny is there were 30-year U.S. Treasuries paying 14%, and investors didn't want them because why do I want a 30-year bond paying 14% when I can get 17 or 18 on my 12-month or 18-month CD? Looking back, there were some missed opportunities there, but people call those the good old days, but here's what they don't remember. Let's say you made 18% on your CD. The following year, come February, March, what do you get in the mail? You get a 1099, you get your little notification that you earned some income. And the federal government and state like to lop off about a third of it. Yeah, that's just a general number we can use. Okay, that takes out 6%, so now we're down to 12. What else do we remember about the late 70s? That we got a little taste of it in the last year. Inflation. You remember what inflation was running? 14, 15, 16% back then. Well, if I made 18, but I lost a third of it to taxes, now I'm down to 12, and inflation's running at 15%, I have less purchasing power at the end of that year than I did at the beginning. So we have to address how do we maintain purchasing power. And two of the best ways to maintain purchasing power is through equities and real estate. Assets that grow over time. So when I sit down with a client and we review a strategy, whether they're 35 or 85 years old, one of the first things we have to try to figure out is what kind of risk do we need to take or want to take to achieve the outcome we're looking to achieve. And that's the first and most important financial investment conversation that we have. Common mistake number 3, control what you can control. Can we control the outcome in the stock market on a daily basis? No, that'd be a superpower. We can't. What we can do, though, is control the amount of risk that we take. And I see this both ways. I see clients that take on far too much risk, trying to chase the next hot thing, or thinking that that's what they want to do. That's a common risk. But another more common risk is fear of the market, and they're invested too conservatively. And they aren't setting aside the money in the right way to make sure that their retirement years can be comfortable, or that they can have a financial legacy to pass on. Mistake number 4, understand the color of money. This is a timely topic. Some of y'all get pretty excited about politics. Some of you get pretty excited and feel pretty passionately about your political team. Now, full transparency, I got to pick the name for our third daughter. And I named her after the greatest president of the 20th century. And my buddy, when I told him that, he said, "You named your daughter Clinton?" I said, "No, her name's Reagan." So I tell you, I'm a political junkie with the best of you. Maybe we agree, maybe we disagree, that's fine. But here's the thing, when it comes to money, if this is the only thing you remember today, money's not red, money's not blue, money's green. And so many people make the mistake of tying their financial decisions into their political influences. I can't tell you how often, well, I can tell you about every 4 years, and more often than that, a client will come in. I've got progressive clients, I've got conservative clients, and they'll come in and say, if candidate X wins, the country's going to heck in a handbasket, and I'm going to get out of the market. I have so many people that look at their money through a political lens, and you simply can't do it. Here's the fascinating thing. The stock market does best not when we have a Republican president with a Republican House and a Republican Senate, not when we have a Democratic president with a Democratic House and Senate. Our markets do best when we have divided government. When we have one party in the White House and the other party has the majority in either the House or the Senate. That's when we have our best market. Washington calls that gridlock, but Main Street and investors say they can't screw anything up. Thank goodness, there's divided government, they can't screw anything up for a little while. So that's what the market loves the most, and it's not even close, the investment performance when we have divided government versus one party in charge. So don't let politics influence your financial decisions. Mistake number 5, watch where you're going, not where you've been. I call this the rear view flu. And most of you, if not all of you, have probably been guilty of this at some point. You'll hear about an investment from a friend, or you'll read something and you'll see that mutual fund X made 42% last year. Well, you want to make 42%, so what do? You put your money into that 42%, the fund that was up 42%, and then guess what happens? Yeah, it goes down. It goes down. So you can't look in the rearview mirror to make decisions. And think of it like this. If all I did when I got in the car was looked in my rearview mirror, I couldn't even get out of my driveway. I'd wreck my car before I even got out of the driveway. You do have to do more than simply look in the rearview mirror. Which leads to, what should we be doing? Diversify, diversify, diversify. And diversify doesn't mean I own Apple stock and Microsoft and Amazon. Yeah, they're different companies, congratulations, but they're all in the same field. Diversification means getting assets invested across a spectrum of investments. And the other thing that I'll remind you is having different colored statements isn't diversification. Having some money here and some money here and some money here isn't what diversifies you. It's what the contents of that portfolio are that diversifies you. Next in our wealth acronym is legacy. These are my favorite pictures. These are the pictures. That top one is the most recent edition, June 29th. Little grandbaby, little granddaughter. And those are my daughters and my my son-in-law, who I tolerated but now love dearly that I have grandkids. So when we talk about legacy, this is what inspired Farmers State Bank to do this event in the first place, is it's not about money. There's so much more. The impact that you can have is truly life-changing. You know, you can talk, and I don't want to get into the details right now, but I would encourage you, talk to your financial advisor, your CPA, your attorney, take advantage of that team and find out, are there things you can be doing today that might make a significant difference? Maybe there's some gifting strategies, charitable giving that you could look at. There's a number of things you could be doing today that could have a tremendous influence in your community. Because the reality is, when you're gone, your loved ones aren't going to remember you for the assets that you bequeathed. They're not going to remember you for what you put in their bank account. They're going to remember you for what you put in their heart. And that's what we have to focus on, is realizing that wealth does mean legacy. Now, one thing, a practical thing I'll share with you, and this is just, again, that life experience I was talking about. I would encourage you, if you haven't done this, as far as prepaid funerals, I don't care about prepaid funerals. We do it or don't do it, I don't care. Pre-plan your funeral, yes. It's an awkward thing to do, but here's why I bring this up. I'm very intimately aware of a situation where a loved one passed away, and the spouse is left to make some pretty challenging decisions in a very short period of time in a highly emotional state. Something as simple as picking out a casket. And funeral directors, I'm not picking on anybody, but that's such an emotionally challenging time. And I learned myself that there's basically the cardboard box option, which is out there, and they also have a platinum encrusted Bluetooth speaker coffin that's out there, and the price difference is astronomical. When your wife or your husband is sitting down and trying to make the decision of which to get, all they want to do is honor you and honor you well. And in this particular situation, I remember this woman that was making these plans. She didn't want to use the least expensive one because she was afraid that people would think that they didn't have any, that he didn't have any money. Now, it's an irrational, it doesn't make any sense, because as soon as that goes in the dirt, it doesn't matter, right? But all she wanted to do was honor her husband well. And if you can just take a yellow pad and jot down, if you want Celine Dion to perform at your funeral, write it down. If you want to be buried in a cardboard box, write it down. A lot of people say, well, I told my kids what I want. No, it's not going to work. Because when you tell kids, one kid might remember one thing and one kid's going to remember something else. Have it in writing, and the beautiful thing is you can write it on a yellow pad, and if you change your mind, you can change your mind 20 times. Wrinkle it up, throw it away, and write down a new one. Just as long as the kids know, go look for that folder in the dresser. Go. That's where I've got everything written down. Because all your loved ones want to do is honor you well. And if it's written down, they'll know that they are honoring you and following your wishes to the best of their ability. Last on this topic of legacy, I hope today that you are encouraged to be intentional about sharing the things that matter to you, the things that are most important to you, the things that you want your grandchildren's children to know about you. Capture those perspectives now. Jot them down, write them down, record them. What are your proudest achievements? What are your biggest regrets? Who inspired you the most as a child, and why? What inspires you today? These are the things that your kids and grandkids and their kids are going to want to know about you. They aren't going to know which stock made you the most money or which mutual fund did the best. These stories about you and about your life are what is going to be missed the most. And again, some of these things I'm sharing from experience. My wife and I got married, and her grandmother gave us a Hallmark Christmas ornament that you could hit a button and record a message. You all remember, some of you maybe even have these today. Every Christmas we'd get that out and hit that button, and we would hear Delpha May say a sweet little saying to Karen and I. Well, you know where the story's going. One Christmas we got the ornaments out, and it was cracked and broken, and we'd lost that recording of Delpha May. And you don't realize until after you lose it how much you wish you'd done a better job of preserving those moments and those memories. So I definitely challenge you and encourage you to it can be as simple as you want it to be, or it can be as extravagant as you want it to be. But that's what I call the true riches. That's the legacy that's most important that you need to capture. So we've gone through wisdom, experiences, affluence, legacy, and I'm hitting the button, I promise. There we go. What's left? Time and health. Time and health. And you know what's funny? Time and money have so much in common. You know, you want more money. You also want more time. And you hate losing money. And we hate to lose time. And one of the most painful things I've been working with clients through recently is dementia, and particularly early onset dementia. It is absolutely heartbreaking how it robs the memory not only of the person that has dementia, but it robs the memories that could have been from the rest of the family, the rest of us. Which again is why I want to be intentional and be reminding you today, take time, be intentional with your time. How many of you have a favorite little time waster? Maybe it's a TV show that you'll sit and binge watch. Netflix has changed the world. Binge watching, to sit and watch 10 or 12 shows, I'm embarrassed to say has happened from time to time. Let's be really careful about where we're wasting our time. And the best way to be intentional with your time is, again, write it down. Write down, when you get home today, write down 3 things that are really important. 3 relationships that you feel like are really important. And be intentional about taking the first step. Maybe it's toward reconciliation. Maybe it's somebody that you love dearly, but you just haven't talked to in a while. Be intentional with your time. Last, I'll end with this. There's a really good song. I'm a song junkie. I'm a singer-songwriter junkie. And there's a song that came out probably about 20 years ago. Craig Weissman was one of the co-writers. And Tim McGraw recorded it. And it's a song called Live Like You Were Dying. How many of you remember that song? You know what I'm talking about? A lot of you do. If you haven't heard that song, I really encourage you to take a listen. I won't get into the details of it because I'll get mushy if I do, but you know, maybe your bucket list doesn't include skydiving or Rocky Mountain climbing or bull riding, but you've got a bucket list. There are things that you want to do. And if you found out you had 3 weeks to live, what would you do? And that's the premise of this song, is to live like you were dying. So I'm going to challenge you and encourage you to pay attention to those nudges. Pay attention to those nudges and be intentional with your time. And stop making excuses about that trip that you said you were always going to take, and you keep putting it off. And COVID wrecked a lot of things, I understand. But be intentional with your time and be confident that when you're spending money, that you're following a plan that makes sense, and you can enjoy spending the money and not feel guilt over it. So go out there and live like you were dying. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Gosh, I could listen to John Forbes all day. He has so many valuable insights and is so wise. I loved learning about what it actually means to know your net worth. It was incredible. I cannot wait to hear part 4 of the Legacy Sessions next week with Pastor Jason McInnes. He is going to end this series talking about what it means to leave a lasting legacy. So Jill, where do we go from here?
Be sure to check out our show notes for this episode, and also be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our newsletter. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.